Hey guys, welcome back to the Second Time Lucky Mining channel. In today's video, we are going to continue the Discovering Ergo series, and more specifically, we are going to have a look at setting up automated matchmaking bots to earn some extra Ergo. If you like the Ergo content, please smash the like button or maybe even consider subscribing to the channel. That will help me out a great deal. But enough of shilling my channel, let's jump into it. Now, in today's video, we are going to build on some of the things that I've learned and some of the services that I've used in some of the previous videos in the Discovering Ergo series. So I would encourage you guys to go and have a look at. Now, specifically what we're going to do is set up an automated matchmaking bot, specifically on the Spectrum Finance ecosystem. And in the process, I will then hopefully earn some Ergo for all of my trouble. Now, what the hell is an automated matchmaking bot? Now, I'm definitely not an expert, and if I'm saying the wrong thing or you have a different opinion, please specify that in the comments. But really what it is, or the way that I like to look at it, is an application that I'm going to run that will automatically try and find the best rate when a person is swapping one asset to something else. So again, if you use the Spectrum Finance ecosystem, you are swapping Ergo, let's say for SIG USD or for some other type of token. Now, the automated matchmaking bot is going to find the best rate that fits within the boundaries that the user has selected. So when you swap, you can specify slippage. It looks at the current price. So the automated matchmaking bot is really going to find the best liquidity in order to facilitate the swap. And that's really the software, or what I'm going to use my hardware for in today's video, is basically setting up this bot that will try and match make swaps that people are trying to do. And in the process, the fees that people will be paying specifically for that swap, a percentage or a component of that is going to come to me if I was successful in matchmaking that specific swap. So that's really what this bot is actually going to do and how you would be rewarded. So at the end of the day, I'm just going to get a portion of the fees if my bot actually wins the transaction and facilitates the swap. Now, over the last couple of months, I've set up and run these bots in a multitude of different configurations and different setups to test various things, to figure out and try and find out what is the best way to set this up. And I'll leave some timestamps at the bottom in case you wanted to go and skip to a specific section, but I'll leave all my lessons learned at the back in case you wanted to skip to that. But enough of me talking. Let's jump on the computer and I'll show you guys how to set up the Spectrum Finance automated matchmaking bot.
Okay, so here we go on the computer. Now, the web page that I've got open is the GitHub for the Spectrum Finance automated bot. And what you'll find here is not only the source code, and that's probably the nicest thing about most of the projects that's on the Ergo ecosystem, is you can just have a look at the source code, but it's got an explanation exactly around what you would need. Now, the first thing that we're going to have a look at is the prerequisites. So if I scroll a little bit down, I will find the prerequisites. Now, the first thing is we will need a Ergo node. We would need Git, Docker, and Docker Compose. Now, for the Ergo node, I've already set up an Ergo node. I've got an Ergo node for the last while. This video is not going to go over how to set up a Ergo node. There's plenty on YouTube. Couple that spring to mind is the Mining Kings or Son of a Text video, so you can go and have a look at that. I might still do one in another video in the series, but at least for now, I've already got a Ergo node. Now, the other thing that I've set up is I've set up a virtual machine that has got Ubuntu desktop on. I've done a couple of different setups. I'll talk about that towards the end of the video around the lessons learned and talk about some of the different setups that I've tried. But I've already got a Linux VM set up here, and if I just go up here, I've remote desktop into it, and then we are going to go ahead and do the setup specifically here. Now, again, there's lots of different ways that you can go about this. There's a couple of videos about people doing it in Windows. I've even tried it on Linux server, but in this case, in this video, I'm going to use the Linux desktop here. Now, the last thing around prerequisites that's actually not necessarily mentioned in this section here, but it's something that you would definitely do need, is a wallet specifically for the bot with some Ergo within it. It's mentioned further down in the document, and it talks about I think it's the SBT tool in order to set up a wallet, but we will use something different and something that I've already covered in some of my videos. So that's something that you'll definitely do need in case you do want to set up this automated matchmaking bot. But again, it's really simple. I'll go over that just now. Okay, so now that I've got all the prerequisites out of the way, let's go ahead and actually do the setup. Now, the first thing, and again, there's lots of different ways that you can do this, but what I like to do is make use of the terminal as much as what I can. Now, the first thing that we need to do, and you can see that here at the bottom in the document, it says we need a specific folder, and then we need to git clone that in there. Now, the first thing that I'm going to go ahead and do is cd downloads. So that's just going to go into the downloads directory, and that's what cd does. And then I'm going to do make dir and then call it bot. So what this will do is it will go ahead and create a directory within downloads called bot. So if I go ls, you will see there is the folder now specifically that I just created. So I'm just going to go into that like this. And that's now within the folder. Now, the first thing that it says is we need to go and get all these prerequisites. Now, that's the first thing that I'm going to do. So we will need git, docker, and docker compose. Now, the easiest way to do that is sudo apt install git. It's going to ask me for my password. And it's now going to go ahead and install git. So that was the first one. So you can see here, I already had that on, so no issue at all. The next one is Docker. So I'm going to do the exact same thing. So sudo apt install, and then I'm going to say Docker. And it's now going ahead and it's already installed Docker. Now the next thing is I'm going to say Docker -compose. So again, same thing. It's just I'm going to go ahead and install Docker Compose. So I'm just making it a little bit bigger, and you would see I already have Docker Compose specifically installed on this machine. So again, all the prerequisites are there. In case you didn't know how to do that, sudo apt install and then whatever the prerequisite is that you want to install. Okay, so now that the prerequisites are on the machine, the next thing in the guide is we are going to use git to go and clone this actual source code here. So what I'm going to do is just copy and paste this. As you can see here, Control C, and this is why I've got a remote desktop so that I can go ahead and paste that in. Now, if I do that, again, I'm already within my bot folder. So what will happen is it will go and download the source code and put it within the folder that I'm in at the moment. And that's specifically the bot folder here. So I'm just going to hit enter, and it's now going to go ahead and download the actual document. Now, what we are going to do next is go and have a look at the configuration file and amend that slightly, specifically with our node and then with our wallet. Okay, so next we are going to update the configuration file specifically for the bot. Now, what I'm going to do is, again, I could have navigated in here, but I'll just show you in the folder structure. If I go to files, and then if you remember, we have created a folder within the downloads. So I'm just going to go download. So you can see here's my bot folder. And since I've run that git command, I've now got a folder here called Ergo Dex backend. So if I double click on that, this is now where the actual source code of or whatever we have downloaded via git is. Now, where the configuration sits is within this config example. So as you can see here, this is an example file. So if I just double click that, it will actually show you what details are in here. Now, what we need to go ahead and do is update the Ergo node here. So the bot needs to connect to the Ergo node, and we will specify the IP address for the Ergo node here. And then as you can see here, text exchange mnemonic, my ergonomic. So this is the wallet specifically for the bot. So we are going to specify the seed phrases specifically for that bot within here. So that's the two configuration changes that we will make specifically to this example. Now, lots of different ways that you can do this. In my case here, what I'm going to do is copy this and paste it in here. And then I'm just going to rename it. So I'm just going to go ahead, right click and say rename. And then I'm going to change it to say that. So config.environment. So if I just rename that, that's actually what the bot is go ahead and read. Now, the first thing that we would need to go ahead and change is specifically my node. Now, again, I'm running the node locally here. If you don't have a node set up, you can potentially point to one of the other nodes on the Ergo network. I wouldn't necessarily advise that. Again, I'll talk about all of the lessons learned, but you want the bot to be able to speak or get transactions from the node as quickly as possible to increase your chances for actually winning that transaction. So the lower the latency, the better. So it's important to at least try and run the node locally here. So in my case, I'm just going to change that and specify the IP address. So this is mine, 245. So that's just the IP address specifically for my node. Okay, so the next thing is we need to set up a wallet and specify the seed phrase in here. Now, specifically what I'm going to do, and if you look at the guide, it talks about setting up a wallet using the SPT tool. I've done that before. I find using the Nautilus wallet a little bit easier. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and show you guys here. So I need to set up a new wallet specifically for the bot. Now, for that, I'm just going to go to Nautilus here. I'm going to select this and then add a new wallet. So I'm going to add a new wallet. I'm going to create a wallet. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to specify bot YouTube as an example. I'm going to specify my password like that. And then here's my mnemonic phrase here. So I'm just going to pop that in Notepad just for a second here, just to make sure I've got it in case something happens. It's going to say, have I stored it? I'm going to say, yes, it's in Notepad. I'm going to click confirm. And it will now go ahead and create the wallet. Now, as you can see here, there's no Ergo within this wallet, so we will fix that shortly. But while I'm busy here, let me go back and paste this mnemonic phrase back into my configuration file here. So I'm just going to paste it in. And important here, you can see there's little flying brackets here, just the one. So it needs to be within that. So I'm just going to paste it in there. And here you can see, I'm just going to make sure there's no spaces. So that looks good. And then the rest of it is exactly the mnemonic phrase here. And then what I'm going to do is Control S just to save it. There was a little star indicated on top of that. That just means that you've made changes and you haven't saved just yet. So that's really what we're going to do within the configuration file. So again, the two things that we need is the IP address of the Ergo node, and this will help the bot actually getting transactions, and then it needs the wallet that it will use in order to facilitate these transactions. So that's specifically what I have set up within the configuration file. Okay, so now that I have updated the configuration file, I've actually created the wallet. The last thing that I need specifically for the setup perspective is to make sure that there's at least a little bit of Ergo within the bot's wallet in case he receives something that is not Ergo. So that might be some SPF that somebody pays a transaction fee. So it's really only for those type of tokens if somebody pays fees specifically in that. So I need to have a little bit of Ergo inside of this wallet in case that happens. Now, specifically for that, that's really easy in case you haven't watched my Nautilus video here. So I'm just going to go onto my bot's receiving address, copy the default one here so you can see that's the address there, and then I'll just need to move a little bit of Ergo specifically to this wallet. So again, I'll maybe not record that, but what I'm going to do is just go back to my Ergo education fund and send specifically to that address. You might be wondering how much. I've just been sending 0.5, so I haven't been sending a lot, and 0.5 is more than enough, at least for the amount of transactions that I'm processing. So I'm just going to go ahead and send 0.5 to this specific bot address. Successful. Now, again, don't start the bot until the funds are showing within the wallet. So just wait, potentially worst case scenario, just wait 2 minutes for the Ergo blockchain before you go ahead and look at the next steps within the guide. Okay, so after waiting about 2 minutes, I can see the funds is now reflecting within the bot wallet. And again, as I mentioned earlier, it's important that make sure that the funds are reflecting and is confirmed within the wallet before you actually start up the bot. Now, that's what we're going to do next. And if I scroll a little bit down on the guide, it sort of talks about the next steps that you would need to go ahead and do. To actually run the service, we are going to use this command here, again, because we are doing it in Linux. So I'm just going to go back to the remote desktop. And as you can see, I'm still in the bot folder. So I just need to be within this Ergo Dex backend. So I'm just going to go cd ergo-dex-backend. So now I'm within that folder and all of the files sits in here. So if I just do a quick ls, you can see I've got my example configuration file, and then I have got my actual configuration file in there. That's the file that I edited, if you remember here. Now, again, I'm just going to go and paste this command in. Because it's sudo, it's probably going to ask me a password. I'll just put that in. And what it's now going to do is actually go ahead and download and build this Docker Compose image. So I just need to be a little bit patient, and then we are going to have a look at the logs next. Okay, so after running that command, at the end of that, you would see something that looks like this. So created readers, Kafka, UTXO tracker, PU resolver, and backend MMA executor. So that means it successfully, at least started the Docker Compose. Now, again, if you wanted to go and monitor this, again, they give you commands here at the bottom. So let me just go ahead and do this. So it's basically getting into the folder. So that's what that CD is. Again, we're already within the folder. So as you can see here, so I don't need to worry about that. So I can just paste the command. So sudo docker compose log/f. So that's just basically following the docker compose log. So that's what the -f is there for. I'm just going to hit that. And what you will now see is the actual log specifically for the bot. So it's really that simple to get it set up and going. And what you would now need to go ahead and do is just monitor the logs. What I tend to do is have a look at my wallet to see what specifically is happening. And that's what I'm going to cover next. Now, again, if you're only here to watch the setup, this is sort of where it ends. But if you're interested into some of the little tips and tricks and what I do and how I monitor mine, I'll show that to you guys next. Okay, so I wanted to talk about some of the lessons learned throughout this experience. So I've made a little notepad of the stuff that I just wanted to talk about. Now, looking at the first one here is Linux versus Windows. So I did run this in multiple Linux instances. So I had a look at Linux server and I also had a look at Linux desktop, and Linux desktop is what you've seen me doing with the setup. Now, again, between Linux and Windows, there's really no difference. So within Windows, you just need to use Docker, and I will pull it up here just so that you guys can have a look. But if you've got Docker on your actual Windows desktop, you can run this on Windows as well. Which one is better between Linux or Windows? It's much of a muchness. I did run it in Windows to sort of see if I got more rewards or rewards more frequently than my Linux box, but it's really a much of a muchness. Now, the other side to this argument around Linux desktop, which I'm running here, versus Linux server, again, I did run this in Linux desktop to start off with. I had my node within Linux desktop, and by the way, you can have the bot and the node on the same actual machine. So that actually works. I did run it like that. In this case, I'm not running it like that anymore. Not because it's not working. It's just I've done it so many times and redone my node. And that's just sort of where I ended up. Now, again, between Linux server and Linux desktop here, I had issues getting it running on Linux server. I had issues with it connecting to my actual node. So that's sort of the issue that I ran into when I ran it in Linux server. So again, these commands that I've executed, you can execute them no problem in Linux server. But as soon as I started up the bot, I had issues connecting to my actual node. So that's sort of why I'm running it within desktop. Again, that might be a me thing, so I'll hopefully try and fix that in the future. Next up, how do I monitor the rewards? And at least for me, looking at these logs is just a pain. You can use the grep command to go and find specific words within the log, but at least for me, what I find useful and what I do is I go and have a look at the transactions against my wallet. And that's the easiest way for me to go ahead and monitor the rewards. Now, again, if I just go ahead and show you guys what I mean, is I just open up my Nautilus wallet bot here. I go to receive and I just click on the wallet, and it will actually show me the transactions within the Explorer. So this is sort of the easiest way for me to go ahead and monitor the rewards. Now, the next question or the follow-up question to that is how much is the rewards and is it useful? Now, again, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go back to my wallet and then flick over to the actual bot that I'm running now. So again, this bot that I've set up is just for the video, but I'm actually running this myself here. And here you can sort of see what it will actually look like. So within my wallet, I've got 0.5 Ergo. So again, I do the same thing. I send 0.5 and let the bot do its thing from there. And as you can see here, I've accumulated 0.7 SPF as rewards and a little bit more within Ergo. So within the Spectrum Finance ecosystem, the user has got the option to pay either in Ergo or within SPF. Now, again, depending on what the user ends up paying with, is what you will get at the end of the day. Now, again, in terms of frequency and is it worth it, it's definitely not something to get rich with. The transactions is very small, but again, I already have the hardware just sitting there. I'm already running a Ergo node, so it's just trying to maximize and at least getting something for running the Ergo node. Now, again, looking at the transactions here, just so that you can get an idea around time frame. I get a reward every couple of days. Now, what you will also need to know is depending on where the transaction is and what your latency is to the node, all of those things make a difference in terms of the chance that you have to actually win the transaction and as a result, the reward. So the closer that you are to the node, the better where the user is executing it from. That also makes a difference. So again, where I am here in Australia, there's potentially not a lot of people, and hence, I get a transaction every couple of days here. So again, is it worth it? I don't know. If you already have a server, you're already running an Ergo node, why the hell not? It's really simple to set up, but you're definitely not going to get rich in the bear market. Maybe it's different in the bull run when the volume is high. And again, the volume on Spectrum Finance, that's a good indication for you to go and have a look at. Should I be expecting to get more or less transactions? Again, the volume is sort of what drives the transactions through here that your bot will have a chance to actually execute. Okay, so the next thing that I wanted to talk about is actually rebooting and how does that work. So again, as soon as your system will reboot, eventually you will shut down the server or the system that the bot is running on. Now, in case that happens, that's fine. You just have to go ahead and reboot the server. That's not an issue. But what I have found is on every single reboot, no matter what, at least 2 of the services doesn't start up by default. So that's just something that happens. I don't know if it's a bug or it's maybe something with my setup, but it happens all the time. Now, again, a couple of commands that helps you troubleshoot these type of things or makes you see these things. Again, in the beginning, I didn't know what was going on, but again, that's why I learned. So if you run sudo docker-compose ps, so this gives you the container statuses. So if you run that, it shows you everything is up. What will happen if you do restart, at least 2 of these services won't come up initially. And again, I will go ahead and reboot and show you an example of what I mean. So I'm just going to go reboot. And it's now go ahead and reboot the system. Okay, so I've rebooted the system, so I'll show you practically what I mean by it. So I've subsequently now rebooted the bot, and what will happen is, well, not rebooted the bot, I've rebooted the actual server, and what you will find is if I just go to the folder, so I go download cd bot, and then I never forget the name here, cd ergo text dash backend like this. Okay, so if I do the same thing, right? So docker compose ps. Again, this docker compose ps just shows you the status of the Docker images. And I'll just put in my password. This is what happens all the time in case your system reboots or restarts. Some of the services will be up. Normally 3, but 2 of them won't come up automatically. What will then happen is your bot won't function the way that it's supposed to. So, when the system restarts or reboots or switched off and later switched on, the bot will automatically try and start up, but not all the services will go up. And here you can see that that service and this service just doesn't come up. Now, how do you go about fixing that? It's really easy. So instead of docker compose ps, you're just going to say docker compose restarts. That will just restart all of the containers. I'll just select that. And you would see it will now start all the containers. Now, if I do the status again, so Docker Compose PS, you would see all of them are up. So it's just a little trick that I've learned that hopefully would help you. Now, the other thing that I find useful, again, looking at the logs that the guide sort of talks about is a little bit busy. What I like to do is have a look at the Docker logs. So what I'm going to do is Docker sudo Docker PS, and this will give me the Docker container ID. So the first Docker container, the actual automated market maker executor, I like to go and have a look at this specific log. When you look at the logs in Docker Compose, it will show you the logs for all of these components. But what I like to monitor to see if my bot is successful or not is just the executor's logs. Now, again, how do you go ahead and do that? So again, I just copied the container ID. So I'm going to do the same type of thing that you saw within the guide. So sudo docker logs-f. So again, that's just follow the logs. In this case, I'm not following the Docker Compose logs, which is the whole thing here. I'm specifically following the container ID on AMM executor here. So if I just hit enter there, it will now only go and follow that one component within Docker, and that's just the executor. So within here, I'll go ahead and have a look at things that you would see. And again, don't be frightened when you see these things. There will be some legitimate errors that will come up where it says double spend failed because of a double spend, or failed because of fees, failed because of all of these different things. Normally speaking, or generally speaking, these are not because of your bot. That's potentially because the user doesn't have funds to pay, or somebody already has won the transaction and your bot's trying to execute it. So a lot of the errors in here is not something that you would need to worry about. I just like having a look at it just to make sure that my bot's actually trying to do various different things. Again, monitoring was I successful or not. I like to have a look at the wallet address here to see if I'm actually winning transactions. And again, it might be a week, it might be a day. It has been even multiple weeks for me to win a transaction. So it really depends on what the volume is. Because we are in a bear market, it is not necessarily that lucrative, but you do win the odd transaction. And again, it's more for something extra that I can do by running my Ergo node.
That's it for this video, guys. If you've liked the video, please like the video and maybe even consider subscribing to the channel. If you didn't, please specify in the comments what you would like me to change. Otherwise, I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.